I hope everyone is seeing my screen. So uh, let's start with an introduction. I'm trying to do that. Okay, cool. It's working. So my name is Tamas Barodi. I am the head of the UK team at OpenSpace. I will be the host today, and I will lead the discussion. I'm really excited to have two really experienced guests with me. Uh, these guys have done a lot of work around Golden Thread, which we will share or they will share. So welcome Marco and Harvey to the call. Thanks for joining us and helping me. You guys, if you want to do a quick introduction from your side, please. Marco, maybe.
Yeah. Thank you, Thomas, for having me. So good morning, everyone. Marco Bonelli, I'm the VP of Digital Service here at Sector with have more than 10-year experience of construction and digital technologies with experience to having ended up innovation for contractors such as Vinci Construction UK and now recently joined Sector. We are a professional service company specialized in technology for construction and real estate. Our focus is helping construction companies navigate the complex construction technology landscape that now has more than 6,000 solutions. A sector we believe that technology is an enabler and tool that help us solve challenging problems of our industry, such as the golden thread of information.
Thank you, Marco. Harvey?
Hi, my name is Harvey Giselle. I'm the digital director for Digital Hub. Very similar to Marco, we are a professional service which help our clients to digitize their assets and make them understand how we can record digitally for compliance and governance purposes. We also cover a wide range of fire products and services for our construction clients. Been in the industry for over now, probably about 50 years in construction. Thank you.
Great. So loads of experience, and we're going to talk all about this. Guys, thank you. In terms of agenda, how we run today, I will give a little bit of introduction and overview of the legislation and some key dates. And then we open up for discussion. So that will be an open discussion format. We will talk about questions of golden thread, requirements, implementation, and also our guest will share some real examples. So to be practical, they will also show you how they are working and being compliant with the legislation. So let's start with the quick introduction or the background. Grenfell Tower disaster happened in 2017. After that disaster, the government ordered a public inquiry and an independent review. This independent review is very well known, called the Dame Hackett Review, and she published her findings in 2018. A quite well-known report, and the findings were that the existing regulations covering high-rise building and complex buildings were not fit for purpose. And this independent review set out a new recommendation for new legislation. The Building Safety Act was passed into law actually a year ago, last April. This legislation was designed primarily to improve the homeowners and lease owners' rights to historic and ongoing issues, building issues, and also designed to hold the construction industry to a higher standard regarding product safety. So really, really important goals and important legislation. One of the key requirements, which is the topic of today, is the golden thread information. Golden thread refers a complete record of buildings design, construction, and maintenance information. And the law mandates this for all high-rise residential buildings over 18 meters in height. So we will discuss that, and we will also discuss the implementation and the details of this requirement. One thing which worth mentioning, and I want to mention, a really important element of this law, that the law places legal responsibilities to those people who are participating in the design and construction process. They are the so-called duty holders, and also on those ones who are responsible for managing the structural and fire safety of existing buildings, or buildings when the buildings are occupied. They are the so-called accountable persons. So these are also really important changes. And regarding the golden thread, or some introduction to this initiative, the initiative was kicked off in 2020 with a project to test and prototype the golden thread in practice. Number of transition points and gateways, so-called gateways, have been set up, and those three gateways are: gateway 1 is the design stage. At this stage, actually, this requires the developer to submit a fire statement in order to get planning permission. That's been in law since August 2021. Gateway 2 is before the work starts, before the building work starts. A building control approval must be obtained. And Gateway 3 is really the handover stage. This is when the final completion and final certification needs to be completed and handed over to the building owner, with all the golden thread information included. And really, this is really important. So the construction process takes place between Gateway 2 and 3. Golden thread must be implemented between these two gateways and must be maintained thereafter. And really, the reason why we're speaking now, or why this webinar is so relevant, that these two gateways, Gateway 2 and 3, are expected to come into force in literally 5 months' time. So end of October, so not end, October 2023, and that will raise a lot of questions. That raise a lot of, or causes a lot of uncertainty. And actually, that's probably the time now I stop sharing my slide, guys. And really, I want to involve my guest and open up for discussion, because that's the way we're gonna run this webinar. And probably a good starting point is really just to overview let's say the golden thread rules or principles, how it was set out, let's say, by the government. Marco, maybe if you want to start giving us a bit of overview about these, please.
Oh, yes, thank you, Thomas. So as we know, the golden thread has become somehow a buzzword in the recent years. Everyone talk about, and hopefully with this webinar, we can try to help and define, have some idea more clear how the golden thread works with the Building Safety Act. So as you mentioned, the tragedy of the Grenfell Tower led to a review of what the legislation should be, bringing that needs for a greater regulation around building safety. The golden thread refer to the detailed information about the management of the building, with specific focus on the critical details of the building. But this one needs to be available to everyone involved, from design, construction, and use of the building. So then risk can be identified, mitigated, and assessed during all the three phases of the building. So the key focus for the golden thread and the Building Safety Act, that is the main legislation that came in practice last year, doesn't specify formats, doesn't specify technology. It focuses on digital and structural information. The Building Safety Act relates to higher risk buildings, and those are defined, the ones that are above 18 meters in height, or at least 7 stories with 2 or more residential units. And as you mentioned, the golden thread is based on 10 different principles, starting from the main focus, security of the residents, making sure that another disaster like Grenfell will not happen anymore. Push a change in culture, define an accuracy of information, from security, single source of truth, accountability, and easy accessible information. So those are elements, especially the easy accessibility of information and accuracy and single source of truth are clearly related to have the information digital and structured, so they can be updated day by day and be passed by from day one, when there is before planning to the use of the building. And one of the most important part related to the 3 gateways that have been introduced by the golden thread is those are hard stops. With the new figure that has been introduced called the Building Safety Regulator, this person has the power of halt the process between those three gateways if the right information has not been shared. If we consider, for example, before, so gateway 2, that is before beginning construction, if details of fire-related elements has not been carefully designed, has not been made available, the construction will be halted, will not start. At the same time, for gateway 3, before handover, if critical elements, we can consider fire-related elements like a fire damper or a fire penetration or fire barrier, if that installation has not been recorded in the digital structural information with all the certificate related, gateway 3 is not gonna be accepted, so there is no possibility to hand over the building, with the risk of the contractor to go back, re-record all the information before handover. That is a task that is very timely and can be also very expensive. So making sure that the information is fully recorded using the right technology and the right process is what really can help these three gateways to be achieved. I've mentioned the Building Safety Act doesn't mention specific format, but is the structural information. As a digital technology expert, we are here Open Space with Harvey, myself, and Sector, try to help the industry with the specific focus of the digital structural information, so that we can make sure that during the construction process, these critical details can be correctly recorded in a digital structural format.
Yeah,
And
I guess
Harvey,
that's the challenge. I guess that it's not specific enough. It's quite high level. I mean, Harvey, what's your thought, or what's your feedback on that?
And I think from my point of view at the moment, I think the question I'm getting asked quite a lot is where do we start digitally?
Mhm.
You know, there's many products out there, but actually which product actually fits, and how can we portray that information if something was something was to happen? How easy would it be for for the regulator to come in and have a look and see whether a portion of the building, fire sock has been put in, or the facade has been put in correctly? So totally right. And I think the challenge is always going to be, which like Marco said, that these stops that you've got in place, it's when they're visible to understand what they are, it'd be great. Then we can then start planning. But I think the main focus is how do we digitally capture it? And I think that's probably why we're here today, is with you, because obviously we have done a lot of work behind the scenes, and we have got quite a few sign-offs from external parties. So yeah, completely, it's all about kept digitally, kept securely, one single source. That's all you need.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that you got the question how to start, but I'm actually quite curious that what are the questions you guys hear from the industry? So what are really the most typical, concerns or questions of contractors or owners currently?
I think the one question I always get posed is, how do we get a sign off digitally? That is the biggest question I get. So that's for my part. And how accessible is the information? Yeah, because I think what a lot of construction companies are looking at is, do we need to get upgraded servers? Do we need to have new computers, high-tech computers? No, you don't. It's all done through the cloud system, through Open Space, in which we trial and tested it. So those are the two questions that I get.
Okay.
Don't know about Marco.
On my part, normally I get two different type of questions. One related to the design part, so what has to be fully recorded at that. Being in UK with the ISO 19650 standard, very well developed, very well spread around, is almost answering the full question. If we follow the companies between design and general contractor, follow the full process made by ISO 19650, all that part is already taken care of during the design part. The hardest part is during construction, is what do we need to capture? How? Is there any prescripted software or format that has to be shared? How do we pass this information from during construction to pass to the user of the building, because the information has to be able to move forward and be continually updated if change are happened. So it's not about what you capture is mainly about which technology, which process has to be followed. Considering the secondary and tertiary legislation has not been released yet in full, there is a bit confusion, and all general contractors trying to scramble around to make sure that we are compliant with something that's not been fully designed and been defined yet. So it's a bit of chicken and egg going around, making sure we are ready, but not sure which is the full extent. So as a general suggestion is making sure that the information can be captured digitally with the right tool, but also making sure there is the right process behind, because just using the tool doesn't answer the question, because the information can be captured, but could be captured late, could be wrong, and not be passed to the right person.
Yeah, I mean, based on what you're saying, my question is really actually how someone can figure out what to capture, you know, because it's quite high level, you know, what information needs to be collected. What actually is, what are those specific information or details, what needs to be captured? How do you define that?
I'll let Marco go.
Okay, but bad legislation is everything that is defined as critical data. So it's everything that is related to the security and fire security of the building. So everything that is related on that aspect needs to be digitally captured. The installation, the design, the installation, all the certificates. So there is not a proper rule. So try to cover everything as possible between the interior of the building and the exterior, especially the facade, if it's related to fire elements as panels, all the part there.
Okay.
On my part, actually, it's a good question, because only yesterday we were trying to understand a process with an external body, and it's a typical capture. So we're trying to look for the fire sock in the cavity wall. So the process that we're using is exposed an image, made good. And what I mean by made good, we're capturing the cavity wall with the socks. Capture 2, capture 3 is all good. So we've made it all good, it's all safe, and we've taken a picture of that. So there's a 3-stage process, which I'm working with an external, working with a client, that's the process that we're going to use. And I've used that process in a few projects, and it seems to be working. But like Marco said, there's no, there's no right and there's no wrong. It's just, it's a grey area at the moment. And I think until something comes out, I think if you cover yourself the start of the project and the middle and then the end, that should be sufficient in my eyes. But also, I have been working with an external company which they've signed that off, and that was obviously Metro Safety that signed that off.
Okay. In terms of recording that, in terms of format, is there any guidance there? What format this needs to be? You mentioned, Harvey, online in the cloud. Has to be online, has to be just digital. What actually
it needs? Yeah, one of the requirements is it needs to have a date and capture. Argument could be said that you could just use an iPhone or a tablet or a device, and that will give you the time and date on there. But that problem leads on to there'll be thousands and thousands of pictures. So how do you differentiate the actual location you're looking for? So yes, it needs a date, it needs a timestamp. Yes, it can be done on an external device, but I believe that thousands and thousands of pictures is not the solution, and holding that into a folder is not going to work, because remotely you really need to think about whether that can be signed off digitally online. That's where we're moving to, that's where we're heading to. And you cannot do that through a device or anything like that of such nature. It has to be a product like itself, like OpenSpace, to actually archive all of that information into one single point. And that's where I'll come back to. One of the things was it available to people who need the information to do the job at one single point of source. And that's one of the things I would always say.
Yes, my part is the information need to be digital and structured. We say capturing photo with an iPhone. Yes, it's digital information, but it's not defined in a structured way. So having information digitally defined and structured way, easily accessible, is what is required to be able to be compliant with the 3 different gateways.
And I guess the interesting part, what Marco, you mentioned among those principles that like a single source of truth. So, that everybody actually accessing the same information, isn't it? I think that seems to be a quite crucial part, that it's in a place where all these different parties can access.
And also this information has to be moved day by day. So if we consider the construction process, the information get recorded has to be moved to the owner of the building. And if any change happened, that the record has to be re-updated with the new information. So it's not just information being there, but be accessible, be able to be modified in the future to be kept up to date.
I agree.
Okay. I mean, it sounds definitely quite challenging. And Harvey, actually, you've done some work around that. So maybe it's time you actually sharing some of the stuff, how you've done that, because it's quite mind blowing, all of the expectation and the requirements here. So do you want to just tell us a little bit about your work about fire safety?
Yeah, we've had a client, again, very similar. How do we capture it? How do we get the sign off digitally? That means someone not attending the site. So that's not Metro Safety or LFB coming on site to sign it off digitally. Bit of a challenge, to be completely honest. But it's thinking out the box. It's understanding the end user. How will the end user, to make it more productive and efficient, how would we do it? So that was a bit of a challenge. Yeah, there was some trial and errors, absolutely, with anything. But we've got it to a stage where now rolling that out through the client's portfolio of buildings. So if you want to bring up a slide, I'm more than happy. Or
yeah, you have a slide. I want to share that. Yeah, got it. So
look, very simple. It's a CAD drawing of an elevation, and it's got the markings on there. So it's L2.03. Now, the reason why we've done that is to strip back the CAD and actually enforce some grid lines. And those grid lines are to make sure that we're capturing it in the right location, how we're capturing it and where it is. And again, it's very much about how do we get the sign off? And now we'll come on to the next slide. So one of the things is this purple dots, as you can see on the right-hand side, these are the locations marked within the grid line. So when we have someone like Metro Safety or LFB or any other fire client that needs to sign this off, all they need to do is click on that dot, and they'll be able to see the image that you can see there right now of the actual location for that particular point. So this, again, unifies and makes it a lot more easier for the end user. Again, it's always think about the end user, because this is going to be shared multiple times with different subcontractors. So it's making it really easy. And the next slide is, it's very much what really got the sign off. And I'm going to be completely honest with you, is, which I have not seen in many products out there, it's the split photograph. So you can see a field note on the left hand side, which is a blue one. That's just a high res picture of that actual cavity wall with the insulation there. However, what you can see on the right hand side is when it was done and made good. So the 21st of September 1448, and then it was completed on the 22nd 1159. That gave people like Metro Safety or any other organization to say, yes, we're happy with that, we'll sign that off. And that then leads on to a compliant building whereby you can then either re-rent that property out or you can sell it. And to be honest, something that Marco said is very much about modifying your captures, holding people to account, making sure that the responsible person is signing them off, who can watch them. It's all there. That is a typical field note, which, yes, we've integrated it a little bit to suit the client's needs. And again, I've been working with Open Space behind the scenes at the moment and trying to make it even more streamlined. So it has all the information. Anyone can pick this up and look at it and go, right, we can sign that building off. This is just a snapshot of the kind of field notes and attachment that we've done some work with Open Space with.
So is the process you guys doing that for every sort of penetration, every item, and then you send it to the authorities and they check this and they sign this off? Is that actually the process itself?
That is the process that we've set with another client, which obviously I can't name that client. But yeah, that is what we have. The client is a large housing association client that looks after about 328,000 buildings in the UK.
That's really interesting. And in terms of the most important thing in this whole solution, what was that? Is it really that they can see before and after, or they have a very easy way to review what you've done? What was
Thomas,
the big thing?
What really won the whole situation was the process on how this all works. But the biggest win that was able to get a sign off is that a fire engineer or any any other organization can see the before and after, and it has a clear defined date and time. Pictures don't lie. It is what it is. It's there. That was the work that was carried out. There's no umming and ahhing over a device that you've taken a picture of and then trying to mirror it up and go, well, okay, it's a long process. This is very clear, before and after, and it was done at these certain times. Here's all the documentation. Here's all the products that was used. So if you look at the field note, all the products were listed in there as well as PDF. So everything was on that point. Everything was there for complete sign off.
So I guess this is one of those principles that it's accessible, it's shareable, and it's that one point. And I suppose the benefit that even in a few years' time, you always can come back to this point, isn't it? To check that. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
Thank you,
Marco. Any thoughts on that solution? It's probably.
No, that is definitely what the key elements of Golden Threads: be able to have a clear point of time or information to be digital and structured, and is where I believe technology like OpenSpace can really help in that direction, because it makes life easier to be able to record the right information that before were recorded with picture that, yes, made information digital, but it's not structured. It doesn't fully answer the right question.
I mean, what I like in this, that there's a clear process behind, and it's always eye-opening to see that how this works in the practice, because we only see just a small part of that big process. So yeah, that was really eye-opening, hopefully useful for our participants as well. And I mean, that leads to the next question, Marco, maybe to you. You've done also some processes and workflows regarding Golden Thread, and yeah, would be very, very keen and interested to learn about those. Wow.
Yes, definitely. And if you be able to show the slide, will be great.
Yeah.
So as we noted, the Golden Thread is a living record of building information. So it requires precise management, accurate data capture, interoperability of data, and technology such as OpenSpace help us maintain this accurate system of records. But what is left is the process definition, tech, and data automation. And what we are defining as sector is we are able to bridge this gap. So as a tech-enabled company, we have defined a solution that can have general contractor with a specific focus of the gateway tree. Because as mentioned before, just using the technology doesn't fully answer the question. Yes, we have the information that is digital, but without defining a process and integration after, the information is not full, is not complete. So at the same time, general contractors are very busy on time. So purchasing new technology or using that, try to integrate them can be very hard. So where we try to help is we focus on enhance the solution that already been enabled, like OpenSpace, so that can be currently used, and we are defining an initial process and technology data integration in what we have defined as Sector Smart Hub. So what we are able to define is working with the contractor, defining a process, or define what and when to capture. That is the key element, because yes, we can capture in data, but if we don't know what and when to capture, then that the day the capture is being done can be late, so we have missed the right information. We also be able to define a link construction key holding dates to the open space capture. So they also define the right field node structure. So we are one of the probably 2 companies in the world that we're able to work with OpenSpace and integrating with the native OpenSpace Power BI data. So be able to grab the data, work with the process definition, and then integrate what is the standard OpenSpace capture. So what we try to define is, what we have defined, is the day-to-day activity of the general contractor doesn't change. This data capturing, the field nodes capturing continue the same way. But what we've done is we made sure that this capture happen on the right time, on the right place. We define construction holding dates, and we integrate this data in what we call Sector Smart Hub, in the right dashboard, defining a single source of truth. So knowing that all the critical details has been fully captured and has been fully approved. If there is availability of 3D model, we can also gather the initial quantity. So be able that we know that there are X amount of critical details, critical elements, and all of them has been captured, all of them have been approved, none has been missed. And automate this process with notification and approval process to be able to make sure that if on a specific day something has to be captured, make sure that it's fully captured. And all of them basically not changing what the general contractor is doing on a day-to-day activity on site. So not giving additional work to the contractor, but just simply enhancing what the day-to-day activity is, to make sure that we know what to capture, when to capture, and all the data is fully linked in one single place to have a single source of truth, then be able to be passed to the following stage, that is the owner of the building, so they know where the data is, and if any change has to happen, can be easily accessible and updated during the use of the building.
Yeah, I definitely see some common things here with Harvey's process for sure. Harvey, what's your thought on this?
No, no, absolutely, and I think I totally agree with Marco. We should have some sort of process, and even looking at this slide, it's kind of apparent that there is nothing out there. So, and I think this is probably the right way. This is the right approach in terms of where I think we should be, and we should really try and adopt that as much as possible, really.
And it's really interesting because I can confirm that, I think most of our customers, like contractors, owners, developers, are impacted by the golden thread requirements. And in the last few months, we've had so many discussions with customers asking about how OpenScale have fit to the golden thread. And we had loads of discussion, but actually I've never seen this process put out like that one in a nice structure. Yeah, nice, very nice to see that.
No, definitely is. As we always try to say, is using technology itself doesn't answer the question, but defining the right process is where we believe the golden thread can be fully answered.
Yes, and I guess one of the things what the law requires, or one of the requirements, that this platform has to be capable of tracking and updating information. So this is what both of you are really addressing or providing, which is essential, if I understand that correctly.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. In terms of accessibility, Marco, is that the same as with Harvey? This will provide access to all the parties, stakeholders. They can go and check this information even after.
Yes, what we define is linking the data from OpenSpace to the initial process and all other technology that if they're already used on site, to make sure that everything is in one single place, have a single source of truth, and be able to move around the access to whoever is needed to go, all the responsible persons from the construction period and after to the use of the building. So we make sure that the information is fully available to everyone that needs to have access to all of those ones.
Okay. And we talked about at the beginning about what data to capture, and there's a lot of data to be captured. But interestingly, both of you using and obviously capturing visual data, and it's no secret you're using OpenSpace. But in general, I would be quite interested to learn your view about how reality capture is relevant here, or what's reality capture or digital capture's role in the golden thread? How important it is?
From my perspective, sorry, go on. Okay.
No, please go.
Okay, you go first. It's fine.
In general, especially for the area related to the construction process, it's fundamental to have the right reality capture system to be able to answer all the questions, because without a reality capture tool, can be OpenSpace or other similar one, we go back to taking picture with an iPhone or a normal phone, saving them in a structure, in a folder, so missing that defined structure and the digital format. So having digital format but missing the defined structure. So it must be a fundamental part of the golden thread to be able to answer the golden thread to use a reality capture tool. Otherwise, we are really missing a good part of the technology to be able to fully fill the requirements.
You know, from my perspective, it's clear exactly what Marco said here. But for me, it's very much about holding that person to account. So for me, it's making sure that we're capturing it digitally, but there's a workflow behind it. Who do we assign that to? So do we assign that to the fire engineer? Do we assign that to the client? And where do we get the original sign-off from? So for me, the end bit is we've captured it digitally, it has to be done that way, but there's some field notes to support the evidence whereby there's a physical sign-off by a fire engineer or a client. So yeah.
How much extra work it is actually to be on top of this, or stay compliant with this expectation of requirements?
With the use of reality capture, there's less work, but it's still a good amount of work that has to be done because all the data has to be fully digitally captured. So of course, the use of systems like this one can make the process smoother, can be faster because it's a passive way of capturing the data, but still is a lot of information that should be recorded in different periods of the construction and in multiple stages. So it's still for the general contractor is a very big task. This is the reason why I try to have the right process at the beginning can make the process much smoother and make sure that the information can be captured at the right time and the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the same for me. The process can be quite lengthy, but the way I kind of look at this is that we are future-proofing for what's yet to come, because we don't really know what's more there to come. But I don't think anything's going to be easy. I think by just taking a picture on your mobile phone, yeah, it's quite easy, but it doesn't actually have any substance to it. So yes, it's lengthy, but at the same time, you're protecting the organization, you're protecting yourself, that the work has been carried out. And for whatever reason, a couple of years down the line, if there is an issue, you can bring it back. So I think in the long run, yes, lengthy, but records what you need for future.
Yes, and I guess the thing what you guys both doing is creating those workflow and as much automation as possible, and is minimizing the extra effort from.
I did want to highlight something which I don't think a lot of people are using or know about this function on OpenSpace. I think it's still a beta version, if I'm not correct, Thomas. It's the 3D. So I've been using it on a property that we just done for a client this week, actually, to be honest. And the great thing about the capture of the 3D of the actual cavity wall, they were able to measure it. So
you talk about the LiDAR scanning.
Yes.
All right,
yes.
That's widely available.
It's not a part of the golden thread. Mm-hmm. It's not a part of that. However, we don't know what's going to be part going forward. But the interesting part is that the scans were able to be taken without any time lost while you're capturing your normal scans, but you were having a 3D image of the fire sock, and you could tell the measurement of the fire sock, which you can then put into your report. So yes, I know we're probably maybe going over a little bit. However, we don't know what's to come. It might be a requirement, I don't know. But if we future-proof it now, then we should be okay to go.
Okay, good. Guys, I'm conscious of the time. We have quite a few questions coming in. But
All
as
right.
the last questions from your side, and you mentioned, Harvey, that the question you hear how to start. I mean, I know there are still companies still scratching their head or working out what to do in the next 5 months, how to get ready. I mean, is there any recommendation you have for these companies?
Come and speak to me and Marco.
Okay, fair enough. I'm sure they will do that.
No, I'm just saying. Look, on my part, I can't obviously speak for Marco, but I'm very passionate around fire. I'm very passionate about passive fire protection, recording. Always here and always willing to help. It may not always lead to anything, but I've got a very high passion of making sure that the buildings that people are staying in, they are safe. So if that helps someone down the journey, I'm happy to do so. So reach out if there is any kind of support that you may need.
Okay.
On the same line of Arvid, I probably come from a slightly different background, more about technology, less probably than the fire part. On my part, probably the biggest suggestion I can do is looking at process before technology, because just purchasing a technology without the right process, it doesn't answer the problem. It also can make the process lengthy if it's not applied correctly. And it's where myself and Sector, we can help on defining the right process to follow the right technology.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you very much. It's probably a really nice closing sort of conclusion or statement from the discussion. Guys, and there are loads of questions. So I will pick a few ones. We answered those, and actually we will come back to all of the participants if we haven't addressed or answered the question now. But let me pick a few ones, guys. Okay, so one question: what exactly happens in October regarding control and policing the law? I don't know if you have any ideas on that. What's your expectation then? Maybe you don't know, but what's your expectation?
I'm hoping that it's a clear, defined principles and rules placed with a documentation to say this is what good looks like and this is what needs to be followed, not grey areas, and actually giving you defined, this is what needs to happen. This is what needs to be happening at this particular stage of the point of when you're doing X, Y, and Z onto the building. That's what I'm expecting. I don't know any other information unless Marco does, but that's all we know at the moment.
We know that the Gateway 3 is gonna come in place. We don't know what information can be considered acceptable or not acceptable. Having defined the right process to try to cover as much critical elements, that can be the good base to make sure to try to cover all the different aspects that this Gateway 3 can really ask. So try to be more prepared, define the right process, and try to find which the right technology can be used. Then can be the right way to get prepared and get ready to cover all the aspects of the Gateway 3.
And I guess one thing we can expect for sure, maybe more inspections or more checks. I think I shared an article on LinkedIn a few months ago that authorities are really actively recruiting for inspectors. So I think that's probably one thing we know.
I've seen a lot of vacancies at the moment, which again, it could be, it could be something else, but it's about digital capture manager for housing associations, for management companies. So it's going down that road. So I don't know, and you may be right, Thomas. It's I think they're getting ready. Like Marco said, they're getting ready. What I would say is what Marcus said: getting yourself ready, because we know digital's coming. There's no illusion of that. It's just the whole process element of it.
So that's an interesting question. How long does the golden thread information need to be stored? The whole life cycle of the building can be 50 plus years. What's the expectation?
From my, yeah, sorry, go on, Marco.
No, go ahead, please.
My understanding was until the buildings stand still, really, to be honest, unless it's demolished at some point, that gets archived. And I know that Open Space archives that and stores that project away on a server. So that was my understanding.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
Well,
the same information
Yeah.
has to be kept live during the use of the building, because if anything change has to be updated. So there is no time length other than required to the length of the building.
Okay. Yeah. Got it. Another interesting question: what if I think maybe we covered that. What if the contractors and the owners are using different management systems? As a contractor, how do you know how to record for each track? So is it really relevant what these different stakeholders use?
It's a very interesting question, because having the golden thread of the building safety bill not defining a structure information or a format, and only require the information to be digital and structured, that kept open to many different possibilities. One of the key elements that has to be looked is the interoperability of data. So making sure that something recorded can be passed to different systems. A suggestion that I could provide is, as a general contractor, try to agree with the client at day one before starting construction, which is the system that the owner or the asset owner is going to use, to try to be able to adapt and making sure that the information can be fully handed over and no information will be lost. Because sometimes, by my experience working from a general contractor before, this handed over process can be quite lengthy, because probably the system that the contractor used and the one the asset owner could not talk to each other. So there is no interoperability of data. So there can be a lot of manual input. That is what we try to avoid, having the right structure format day one to be able the data to be seamlessly passed to the next the asset owner.
That's a good question, to be honest. I had the same question posed to a client. So one of the things that came out is that Open Space has an API. For whatever reason, we can at some point integrate that into their own true view system or compliance system of their own in-house, which solves the issue. So that question was posed at the beginning.
Okay. Yeah, it's really important to clarify that at the beginning. I mean, we really run out of time now, actually. I pick one more question, and then we will close this webinar. I think it's interesting, and it's about cost. Somebody is saying this seems to be an expensive and very complex exercise. Do you have any estimation of how much it costs or increases the construction cost? I don't know if you can answer that, but
I can answer that, and I can answer in one word. Do you want to stay compliant? How much does the life cost? So making that building safe and capturing it safely, I don't think there is a cost in it, but it's not expensive and it's not lengthy. And again, I'm happy for that person to reach out, and I can tell you the costing. I wouldn't be able to tell you it over a webinar, because obviously every building is different. But I would always pose that one question: is making sure your building is safe. Yes, digitally capturing is not going to make it safe, but digitally capturing it and then giving it to a subcontractor to carry out the works that they've done, and then them recording it, well, that speaks 1,000 words.
Yeah, I will also add that the possibility of fines that can come after if it's not fully compliant can be huge. So we talk about millions and millions of pounds, can be really threatened for general contractor or everyone involved in the industry. But as well, if we don't go through the digitalization process and making sure that there is a system like reality capture, and we try to be stuck in the past taking picture, even if that seems the easier solution, that is the most costly and lengthy solution, because we don't want to adapt to using a new system that can really help on answering, at least capturing the data that need to be passed and making sure that it's fully compliant.
Yeah, it makes sense. It reminds me on our discussions about reality capture, that the cost is probably less than a lot of customer things, and generating the productivity and transparency actually saving a lot of time and cost as well. So I guess that's valid here as well, all the processes you guys shared. I think that's around the time, and I want to really thank you for both of you, participating, coming and helping me or answering some of these questions. Just really the closing things. If the participants have any question, please feel to get in touch with us, get in touch with Open Space, get in touch with me directly. If you want to get in touch with Harvey and Marco, I'm sure those guys will be also very open to help. And we still have a lot of questions which we haven't answered. We run out of time, but we will do that in due course, and we will come back to you in answering those. And as I mentioned, recording will be available in a few days' time. You will get that by email. Thank you very much for the participation, and hope you found it useful. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.